use my affiliate link to support the channel down in the description there. Now let's talk about Tenpai Dragon. So Tenpai Dragon is a fun little archetype coming out of Legacy of Destruction, because going into this weekend I was like, if people don't come prepare for Tenpai at these regionals, they're gonna get rolled by it. People are underselling how good one card OTKs are. You have a one card Tenpai, OTK with Trident Dragon with their best main deck monster. Obviously the engine, it's only like 15 cards, and like you run 25 non-engine, so their ability to combo off and get to their 2-card combo isn't the best. But obviously they can run like things like Shifter, Droplet, Bestials, like hand traps. They're really gonna hurt you. They're really gonna hurt you, especially as a branded duelist. And I talked to Andre Torres about this. Shout out to Andre Torres, another branded goat in the chat. We were talking about how this is actually, it's gonna be a little bit of a tougher format for branded in theory right now. Obviously branded best deck, but it's going to really take a good pilot for branded to like win something like a YCS this format is. But yeah, Tenpai Dragon. So you have a lot of options as a branded duelist, obviously. I think your first and biggest option to deal with Tenpai Dragon is the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. This card is going to basically win you most of your games against Tenpai. And, we already have multiple lines. Shout Nightfall, shout Raoul. We've featured a lot of combos on here. With that these guys have made that allow you to play through these combos, or a lot of hand traps, and obviously we have the ones that we always were using, but really shout them for innovating the deck a lot recently. But anyways, obviously we're already playing through a lot of hand traps, but I think having decks with 25, having more decks than usual that have like 25 non-engine mean that you really should be well, this is why Gimmick Puppet won't always resolve, is what I'm trying to say, essentially. So you have to have another backup plan, obviously, if Gimmick Puppet does not resolve, because they're going to be bestialing you, they're going to be dropletting you, they're going to be ashing you, they're going to be veiloring you in the Tenpai build. So, if you can get to Gimmick Puppet, wonderful. But I feel like, I'm not going to say it's 50% of the time you won't get to Gimmick Puppet against them, but it's probably going to be that around, like, roughly, because of their hands. Obviously, you can build your deck to play through, like, 3 or 4 hand traps, but not every branded hand will do that, of course. Necro World Banshee to activate Zombie World is strong if you don't want Puppet. Oh, okay, so me and Yuri were talking about that. I wish I had the Necro World in front of me, but we'll mention that right now. Yeah, or give me the reasoning, and we'll read it off for the stream and the video. Raul, shout out 50 people in the chat. Make sure to leave a like on the stream if you have not already. Help support the channel. I appreciate it. But yeah, I think the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare really does give you an edge in the matchup. It makes it so the matchup is more in your favor than not, in my opinion. A lot of decks just don't have a Gimmick Puppet kind of thing. So, their ability to just not be able to play in the draw phase is pretty good outside of like a Droplet or a Super Poly. So, you can always do the Raoul special and set up Retribution plus Branded in red to play around the Forbidden Droplet, or you could use things like Blazing Branded King. I think I have the card right next to me, actually. This is something I wanted to show off for the Tenpai matchup. Shout Yuri Diaz for always running this card. I think this card is actually going to be quite good at going forward and in our deck. So, yeah, no, you have more options. I think that overall, though, that Threatening Roar is probably your best generic card. There's also things like D-Barrier, guys, but I don't even have the D-Barrier out because they can still OTK you through D-Barrier. They can go into... They have a Zelantis line that goes into Pyro Phoenix, just like Snake Eyes does, that can OTK you with like 1 or 2 cards. So, overall, D-Barrier... While it's tempting to run, I think there's going to be a lot better options. You see people thinking about Super Ancient Organism. This is the trap card that makes it so level 5 or higher monsters can't attack or use their effects. This is something we can outrun because this is a very good side into Branded, and that's why you might see this card crop up if you guys see more Branded. Obviously, Branded is really good in a context where everyone is on board breakers, because the only board breaker that affects us is Droplet, and guess what? Everyone's already on Droplet right now. So, you know, if everyone just moves to more board breakers than hand traps, our deck just like goes very high to the moon in terms of our stocks with the deck, how good it is. So I think Threatening Roar is your best generic option because it is a triple tactics thrust target, obviously being a generic normal trap, and what it says is your opponent cannot declare attack this turn. Why is this better than your other options? Well, Wabaku, they can still destroy, or Wabaku basically isn't as good, and then you have things like Battle Fader, well, that's the thing, you have things like Battle Fader as well, which you would think would be okay, but they have the Transcendent, their level 10 synchro, I believe it is, which basically makes it so your opponent cannot activate effects in the battle phase. So once they hit the battle phase with that card, your card effects are turned off. So this is why Super Poly can be good against the deck, but also could not be. We're going to talk about Super Poly as well. I think Super Poly is going to be quite good this format. And one of the reasons will be Tenpai Dragon. I think it is pretty good against Tenpai Dragon. You can obviously make a Garura with their monsters, but the way they can get around this is that they have a field spell that will always be out that makes their monsters unaffected by card effects in the main phase. Okay, well, let's go into the battle phase in Super Poly, which is going to be the case a lot of the time because, as I said, the main deck monster Tenpai Engine is about 15 cards. They will not see their card combos all the time. Their 2-card combo gets them to Transcendent Dragon, the synchro boss monster in Tenpai that allows them to deny you access to card effects in the battle phase. They can only get to that on before the battle phase if they have the 2-card combo. So this means that Super Poly is going to be good basically about 50% of the time against the deck. Is that good enough to run it? I think it's good enough because we're going to have a wide open format with like Lightsworn coming in with Melodious. Melodious is going to do stuff, guys. Did in the OCG. It's looking pretty good. Then you have Voiceless. It's pretty good against. And Snake Eye. It's not great, but hey, man. Set Albaz Mirror Jade. Also, like Alba Lenatus is something that we can talk about as well. I think Alba Lenatus is a card that we can run for the Tenpai matchup because obviously it takes up a bunch of dragons plus Albaz. And you can contact fuse off the dragons. However, this might be an okay situation because Tenpai runs a card called Heat Wave. And Heat Wave, we basically can't like normal summon or special summon. And this is how they can go first with the deck. For instances like that, we have Nadir Servant, obviously, and Super Poly gets around that quite easily. But obviously, if they get into the Transcendent, this isn't that great. And then you have Ghost Ogre. I think that Ghost Ogre, I feel like I was brushing over something, but it's fine. Ghost Ogre is quite good also. I think this is going to be the best hand trap against Tenpai. It's going to be a very good hand trap going forward as well, because you have a bunch of field spells coming out with like Gimmick Puppet, and with more archetypes in the future on top of Tenpai that are very broken, and you need to deal with the field spell. Obviously, like Fire King, it deals with it pretty well, but Snake Eye is still better than Fire King at the moment, so I'm not worrying about that deck. Ghost Ogre is going to be able to take care of their field spell that makes their monsters unaffected in the main phase, so that you're actually able to pop their cards. Alternatively, you have things like Borreload Furious Dragon, which allows you to do basically the same thing, but in monster form. So I think that Borreload will definitely stay in our deck. And also, shout out Nightfall in the chat. We were talking earlier today, and he suggested Magnum the Reliever is actually quite a good option right now. Might even be better than Borrel against the Tenpai matchup, because you can chain Retribution in your graveyard, always be popping the field spell. Obviously, you could chain onto their effects. You know, you just need to have a card that gets over the field spell. So I think Borreload Furious, it was an amazing card last format and will continue to be an amazing card in our extra deck that we should definitely keep in. We also have the Blazing Branded King. Shout out Yuri Diaz. I think this does get over the field spell. Obviously, it only does it for a turn. It also gets into stun a bit, but obviously, it only does it for a turn. So, can be a very good option with how many decks are running face-up cards. I think this will be something that we have to keep looking at, honestly, going forward. The Dragoon is also quite good in my opinion, because a lot of the time they can't even make a monster that gets over 4 or 5k. So Dragoon actually will prove to be an issue for the deck, and I think Dragoon is going to be pretty good into a wide open format. You guys are actually going to see that Dragoon is in my deck profile here. Like a week or two ago, I was like, oh, we're going to have to side cross out Designator for D barrier because everyone's going to be on D barrier. And that might prove to be like, this might be a good option this weekend, honestly, if you're going to an event, because people will be on D barrier, in my opinion. That was like looking to be the best option for Tenpai. But if you are looking at what Tenpai is doing, their abilities to OTK through D barrier means that you should probably be running something else than D barrier. But also, as a branded duelist with Lab recently going second place at YCS Raleigh, do we really want to be running or losing to D barrier? You know, so I understand the wanting to get that cross out with D barrier. I just maybe like Nadir Servant would be a better option. I think Nadir Servant allows you to play through D barrier or fusion duplication, that kind of thing. Joshua Duenas, good afternoon, man. Nice to see you. Necroworld Banshee to activate is strong. If you want Puppet. Is it because they're not dragons anymore? So the Tenpai Synchros need dragon type monsters, and the field spell only protects fire monster dragons, but with the zombie world, they're zombies. Okay, so this is why zombie world is very good. It also handles your flu matchup quite well, and like any other like Dragon Link deck or whatever, and just like random random rogue matchups, right? So I think it being a 2-card engine that you can just Branded Fusion off for, it's pretty good. Something that we can also consider, and that will be the last option we suggest for the old Tenpais. I do think though we are going to be running a couple of these cards.